8:33 a.m., March 23, 2002, Fairfax, Virginia. I'd been poisoned in Vietnam and ambushed in Haiti, instituted a war plan for invading Afghanistan and knighted by the Queen, attacked by the Vice President, and prevented a high-ranking cabinet official from precipitating global war by deliberately shooting down an American airplane. So the last scenario I could ever imagine for my own death was falling off a ladder while trimming a tree in my own backyard. Yet that's exactly where I found myself the morning of March 23rd when I slammed headfirst onto the ground. I was completely paralyzed from the neck down and unable to breathe, oxygen nearly depleted, starting to lose consciousness, powerless to do anything about it. My mind flashed through snippets of the incredible ride that constituted my life. October 1997. Early on in my days as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, we had small weekly White House breakfasts in National Security Advisor Sandy Berger's office that included me, Sandy, Bill Cohen, the Secretary of Defense, Madeleine Albright, the Secretary of State, George Tenet, head of the CIA, Leon Firth, the Vice President's Chief of Staff for Security, Bill Richardson, Ambassador to the UN, and a few other senior administration officials. These were informal sessions where we could gather around Berger's table and talk about concerns over coffee and breakfast served by the White House dining facility. It was a comfortable setting that encouraged brainstorming potential options on a variety of issues of the day. During that time, we had U-2 aircraft on reconnaissance sorties over Iraq, and these planes were designed to fly at extremely high altitudes and extremely high speeds, the altitudes ranging up to 70,000 feet, both for pilot safety and to avoid detection. At one of my very first breakfasts, while Berger and Cohen were engaged in a sidebar discussion down on one end of the table, and Tenet and Richardson were preoccupied in another, one of the cabinet members present leaned over to me and said, "Hugh, I know I shouldn't even be asking you this, but what would you really need in order to go in and take out Saddam in a precipitous event, something that would make us look good in the eyes of the world? Could you have one of your U-2s fly low enough and slow enough so as to guarantee that Saddam could shoot it down?" The hair on the back of my neck bristled, my teeth clenched, and my fist tightened. I was so mad I was about to explode as I looked across the table thinking about the pilot in the U-2. And then I responded, "Of course we can," which prompted a big smile on the official's face. "You can?" was the excited reply. "Why, of course we can," I countered. "Just as soon as we get your ass qualified to fly it, I will have it flown just as low and slow as you want to go." The official reeled back, and immediately the smile disappeared. I knew I should not have asked that. "No, you shouldn't have," I strongly agreed, still shocked at the disrespect and the sheer audacity of the question. "Remember, there's one of our great Americans flying that U-2, and you're asking me to intentionally send him or her to their death for an opportunity to kick Saddam. The last time I checked, we don't operate like that here in America." I left the room that day, but I never forgot it. I went back and I shared it with the Joint Chiefs, not revealing who it was, but nonetheless getting into how it played out. You may not think those types of things still happen in Washington, but trust me, they do, and I've just been exposed to it. Keep your antennas up and do not ever fall into it. Looking back on the 34 years of my career that led to my appointment as chairman, I felt comfortable with the man I saw in the mirror. I had earned a solid reputation as an honest, straightforward role model for integrity, ethics, and selflessness, a leader whose moral character was beyond reproach. Now, as I proudly stepped into my position as highest-ranking military officer in all of the United States Armed Forces, the principal military advisor to the President and National Security Council, I was excited to serve as a living example to the 3 million-plus men and women of our armed forces that it really is possible to rise to the top of one's profession through character-based leadership and without it being at the expense of others. But what was I stepping into behind the heavily fortified walls of the Pentagon's inner circle? With subsequent White House gatherings, attempt to drag me into more revolting conspiracies. I'd had bosses who'd asked me to steal for them, others to access and falsify their records. I'd seen my share of cowards and relieved them of duty. But never in those 34 years had I seen, or even imagined, anything that came close to a senior cabinet member suggesting I be party to killing one of our great airmen in hopes of starting a war. Was this typical of what really went on at the highest levels of the United States government, the country I had passionately devoted my life to serve? If my first few weeks as chairman were any indication of the challenges the next 4 years would bring, I'd have countless opportunities to call upon those principles deeply ingrained within me as a young boy in a small North Carolina town called Speed.